The theme for this year's Heritage Week is opening the door to heritage. But since it is impossible to open the door in reality, we are virtually opening the door to the past and to the memories and anecdotes of friends and neighbours, many of whom sadly are no longer with us. The Rambling House maps significant occasions and festivals throughout the year and recorded memories associated with them. By opening the door to the past, we are preserving the traditions of our heritage for generations to come. So John will sing our own Knockfierna home.
Other counties may boast of their rich lands, where fine cattle can roam as they will. But give me a home in Knockfierna, at the side of the wind-swept hill. There again to smell the sweet heather, and to hear the old cullroo's call, with a rose tapping light at the window, and God's blessed light over all. It's there my fond thoughts will linger, no matter wherever I roam. I ask not for fame or for fortune, but give me my own Limerick home. Tora Hill will wake up in the morning, when she's clad in her mantle of grey. Knockfierna looks down on the Shannon, just to bid it Godspeed on its way. Lochar has castle-crowned islands, and the bright sparkling gem I love best, for she'll hug like a fond loving mother, to clasp them to her friendly breast. It's there my fine thoughts will linger, no matter wherever I roam. I ask not for fame or for fortune, just give me my own Limerick home. Now the joys of an old Limerick cottage, when the winter nights come along, the neighbours drop into the kitchen to fill it with laughter and song. As Shanachie sits by the corner to tell us of days that are past, while the Banattee's wholehearted welcome will take the chill from the cold winter's blast. It's there my fond thoughts do linger, no matter wherever I roam. I ask not for fame or for fortune, but give me my own Limerick home.
Yeah. Did you use those? Are you familiar with them, or who used to use them?
They wasn't there at all in any Green's time, nor the press nor anything.
No. Did you use those things yourself in your own house?
Yeah.
The washing board, do you see the washing board above? You used that?
Pure sunlight soap.
Yeah, didn't that all the time.
Still in use in some
places?
Yeah,
on every house I make out that the washing machine.
That was the washing machine they had long ago.
The
washboard on the tub. No, it's done on the tub.
Every Monday morning I suppose to be done with it.
Nan Keefe here will give us an exhibition on how this was used, you know. We'll fill the tub for you a bit later on now, you know. They were also on timber.
Aye, they were. Timber, I never used it. They have to say they were very severe on the claws, the glass ones.
Rather severe on the knuckles as well.
Yeah. No, would have a lot of claws to wash.
You know, down the tub now, you put this on the shoulder, that we're going to fill it with water for you.
Did you have
an enamel bucket?
The inside will be usually cleaner than that, I imagine.
What was the tub we used to have?
A temple tub, yeah.
Come on, let's try nothing to rub in there. Would you take off your shirt?
I take off my shirt. Show the way. We'll give up any
Hey, this is the family show. This is the family show, please.
Any bit of a cloth around down.
Give me something.
A piece of cloth beside her.
We'll
get you a piece now in a minute.
We'll turn this now to face.
All you need is a drop of water there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That'll be more appropriate now, it seems. There's a sketch. Lift your head there for Martin Ryan. If it was full of water, you'd never stop.
I don't know how to end up for you.
It's a lot easier nowadays with the washing machines.
Oh, God,
and
it
things.
is.
No advertising, please.
No.
Women used to go around the locality on hire, so to speak, to houses.
Doing the washing.
Doing the washing. Washerwomen.
Washerwomen.
Who used to do that in this locality? Do you remember the names of anyone?
Huh?
Sorry?
Mrs. Tracy.
Mrs. Tracy, yeah. But she was Mrs. Doody, Mag Doody. Well, that's funny where it now. We were Knockfierna, weren't we? We were Knockfierna.
On your side of the hill.
Yes. Rachel
Who used to do it on the
Tracy.
Knockfierna side?
Rachel Tracy and who else then?
She'll be related to you now before the night is out. And how much pay would they get for that? Would it be?
I know would they get any money on it, something in kind. Maybe a half crown of the washing.
They do complete washing in that
yeah,
house?
aye, they would, but they'd always get something going away home, going home with something else.
And would they move on to another house then the same day?
Oh, they wouldn't. You know,
Only
it'd
the
be
one house?
once a week washing would have stopped. Monday washing.
Going for the day nearly in
Yeah,
the one
they
house?
would indeed, yeah. All those. There was no nylon sheets then or anything, this kind of thing, the drip dries or anything, it was all flanellation.
Linen, I suppose.
Yeah.
Who was the washerwoman in your area?
Mrs. Doody from the town.
Yeah.
She used to always come over around.
And how much would she get paid? Would she get paid more than the crowd at Knockfierna on the hillside on the other side of the hill?
Hallelujah, settled the one.
About a half a crown for the day.
Yes, yeah.
What year would that be?
Oh, it's supposed to be in the 40s and 50s. The 40s at least.
How did you manage during the war? Years didn't I last the two of you, that I suppose. What difficulties had you during the war?
Oh, we had lots of the rationing, the tea and the sugar.
So you couldn't be meeting the boyfriend, so you would go walking.
I didn't have to go there.
I didn't have to cross the tea and
It was level for the shoes, so you
yes, exactly.
Who was the washerwoman as my age? Who was in your area in the washerwoman? Had you anybody?
Very girl, very girl.
Do you remember that particular book? Not that particular book, but the book I like it. General Ration Book for 1944. You have the butter and your prices inside and that as well, actually.
And that's also what?
Coupons and all.
Coupons and The half pound a cheese. What was the song about?
I'm trying to spare them.
Have you
Bless them all, bless them all.
The ration book for people at home in later days, the ration book, General Ration Book, 1944 issue. And you had the name and the address of the person in it, and their number. And then those ladies would even be more familiar with the ration book than I would have been. And you had coupons, and there's the coupon, and you had a warning as to how to use it, and you couldn't leave this. And then the various shops in the front of it, the date was used and what the shopkeeper's signature and address went on the front of the book. Did you use one of those, Mrs. Elmer?
Yeah.
What did you get that you wouldn't get today with it? You'll get an awful lot for £1 anyway, I'm sure, you know. What would you do with the ration book, you know, when you went into the shop?
Only for the tea and the sugar, and that's all that's in there.
That's
There
all,
was no tobacco and that to carry to your children.
So what did you get a different ration book for the tobacco?
No, I wouldn't get it at all.
No ration with the tobacco. It was only tea and sugar on it was on this.
That's all, and butter, that's
And
all.
butter as well. And how many of each would you get? How many units, so to speak, today?
Oh, God, I
How
know.
much tea?
A half an ounce of tea.
Half an ounce only.
Yeah,
Per person.
Per person, per house.
yeah.
What?
If your children will be allowed more, you will
Allowed
allow...
child half an
Oh,
ounce.
just the same, yeah, just the same.
And how much butter did you get then?
Pound of butter. Pound of butter, yeah.
Was there
Wasn't the
black
butter?
market?
There wasn't the tea. In the tea, there was black market in the tea.
Did you get it every day then, the half ounce?
Per week. Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah, Saturday. And you'd have to do with it. If wouldn't, unless you had some friend that would give you an extra grand.
I'm told also to ask a question about midwife. We changed from the ration book. Where was the midwife living in this locality at that
There was
time?
no midwife. Nurse Griffin was in Ballingarry. In Ballingarry she was.
Around the area.
You yourself, were you born in Limerick or?
I was born at home.
Yeah.
A neighbouring woman that said my mother said to come in, that's in for her.
Neighbouring woman.
Yeah.
Who was she, do you remember?
Mrs. Daffy and Mrs. Gorman
Mrs.
behind Ballyale.
So there was no doctors and there was no...
There was doctors all right. There was doctors all right.
At the time yourself,
Well,
midwife to be called, is it?
Well, the midwife we called, but the doctors were there if they were needed.
And how did they go for the doctor visit?
Oh, pony and car. Pony and trap, yeah.
And if you had an emergency then it was the same pony and trap and wait a long period of time till they came to them?
Well, no, it was. But because the doctor would have a car. Yeah.
19, 13, 40 for nothing. For blacksmithing the time I shot horses for 5 shillings a set in old money. Half a crown for a set of moors, and 9pence for one more. And you would have to buy coal, iron and nails and all that. And now they're getting £20 for what I done for 5 shillings. And that's not a big change.
A fierce change indeed, Jim. Gary McMahon was saying there before he left about the blacksmith that was pulling teeth.
Yes, well, of course, I only heard about that, you see.
You didn't do it?
No. I should, no.
All these ladies in front of the fine mouthful of teeth anyway, so obviously...
I wouldn't have the nerve to do that anyway. It seems that tie a cord onto the tooth, you see, and tie to the anvil, have them outside the anvil. And the blacksmith had a big iron in the fire, and to red hot. And he'd make it die with him with the thing, of course, and he'd put his head, and the tooth was gone.
Simple task. As you said, they charge £20 for that nowadays as well. You know?
Oh, they would. That's a fact.
Had you any difficulty collecting money for works done?
It was very hard to collect it. Very hard to collect it.
People weren't as wealthy then as they are today, were they?
Oh, no. Oh, God, no. We done the world of work in for nothing. We'd make S-hooks, and an S-hook would have to put it in the fire 2 or 3 times to make it, and we'd make it for nothing. We'd done too much work for nothing.
Yeah. What about gates and ploughs and things? Did you make those?
Oh, we did. We made gates mostly out of old bands of wheels, and firstly you would have to cut the band and then heat it all round, because when that band was put on a timber wheel, it was cold, you see, and it put on. So therefore, if we went about straightening that, you see, without heating it again, it would break. So you'd have to heat it all round anyway and stick it into a hole in the wall sometime and put it back and straighten it. And that's what we made gates out of. And I remember the last gate I made, I only got £5 with.
What year was that?
Oh, it could be, I suppose, about 1945 or there around. And I was placing a gate today, a 12-foot gate, £55.
And no quality.
No quality.
No quality. They've come a long way in that area nowadays as well, indeed, you know.
Didn't say the gate.
Did you have any noted callers or travellers? We said travellers used to get their horses done. I assume there's lots of travellers, tinkers as such.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
What names were there used to call to you?
Actually, there's the Bryans there from Rathcale and Quilligans and Sheridan's and
And how were they to pay?
Some of them were great. If they had a bigger, they'd pay you.
Yeah. Thanks, sir. We'll move on to the man with the cap. This isn't your first time here, I believe.
Indeed, it's not.
Who was here, who used to be here when you were here last? To be 40 years or 50 years, I suppose you were here last, was it?
50.
Yeah. Who was here in those days?
There was Honey Green that afternoon, no? She kept lodgers here. There was a sister of mine, Nora, stayed here. And Joe the Plucker.
Who was he?
Afternoon.
Plucking geese and things?
Plucking geese and...
Around at farms again, is it?
Everywhere.
Yeah.
He might be in Clare one day and he might be maybe in some part of Carolina a couple of days, you know.
Henny Green, we hear a lot of people talking about her. She used to go to town late at night, you see.
All hours of the night. You meet her from 12 till 3 in the morning, coming home.
Yeah. And how used she, 3 dogs?
3 dogs.
Was she walking or a donkey car or what?
Or walking, Shanksmere.
And why was it so late? Why used she go to town so late?
There she'd be going into neighbours around the town.
It was Henny Green.
Oh, that's a fact.
She used to always call.
They always called her. That's the truth.
She was the last person living up around here, I think, was she? On the hillside.
She was. She was. Jim Sullivan died before on Jordan. He needed an optimism.
You used to play cards in all those houses?
I played cards at Jim Sullivan.
Yeah.
A penny 45.
That was what, about 1930s, was it?
It would be around that.
40s, yeah.
It ought to be around that.
Do you miss those days?
Well, I'll tell you one thing about it. There were happy times, there were hard times, but there were happy times.
Do you miss those days?
Oh, I do, really. No, they were good old days, and there was something to look forward to.
People had more time to talk to.
Exactly. They were very more neighbourly then, you know. You had everybody.
Why do you think that has changed?
Oh, I suppose, no. But better time, more modern.
Television, I suppose.
More, definitely, it has ruined the life.
It's a case of
No, exactly.
Americans. You've no television, have you?
No.
Do you miss it?
Why?
The television?
No.
You couldn't miss it, said you, when you never had it.
No.
And have you seen a television?
Yeah.
What do you think of it?
It's only all foolish game.
Foolish game. Do you think were the people better off without it?
They were.
Yeah. Did you notice the big change in the lights? We'll say long ago, we'll say you wouldn't have had any lights. Nowadays you can see Limerick City and it's like a New York City.
Yeah.
Did you have any lights to see long ago?
No, lights.
Black.
It was pure black.
So
it used to be nearly black, dark when we'd be going home from Hania, when she'd be ready to go to the town.
You used to be here till she went down and you went across the hill.
Yeah.
And would you be afraid going over the hill on your own? You were a mile across the hill.
No.
You wouldn't be afraid of the fairies or the booty?
No, but sure there's no fairies or booty, man.
No?
No. I'd always have someone with me.
Yeah. What time used you go home? About 12, half 11 was it when she used to go to town?
I know she used to go in the winter nights about, we'll say 7 o'clock in the winter nights.
Yeah.
And it's pure dark. And whoever be here, I have to go away home.
We'll now ask the Fitz here to describe some of those implements, farming implements around the wall. The quins up here.
The first thing now you notice is a drill quin, they call it. The horses were more apart when they were opening drills than if they were ploughing. The second one then is a ploughing quin. There were 2 smaller quins now to be attached onto the end of that quin. The iron that the in, they were called slines. And the next in is a pony's collar. And the straddled in next, and the breeching at the tip with the trace hanging up it like. And the next thing in your collar was a donkey's collar. And, you know, winkers. There were smaller winkers for a pony and a larger one for a horse. The next thing now is a hay knife. It was for cutting hay and go in either a hay barn or in a rig. You come on in, you have a lantern. That was the way you show around the long hole when you go to night. You want to see cows and like. There was no electricity in the
television they have nowadays, do you know?
Television,
in the bed. You can see the cow moving.
That's right.
That's right, Mike.
That's right.
Fan vouch for those.
Yes. That's
every house had one.
A clock now, like everybody a clock like that long ago. An 8-day clock was it called it, in fact. And you owned it
8 days.
Every 8 days, like keep it going.
There was very nice work in the clock, very nice design.
Oh, very well done, like, yeah.
Some of those wealthy farmer ladies all here admiring the quality, you know.
That's right. And there are numerous figures of what they wouldn't. Than the arm repairs on it. So it kept off the back, like.
Who was the last harvest maker in there in Gary?
Oh, Paddy Heffernan.
Is he dead now?
Oh, he did a long time. Oh, Mary.
Conor Regan came after him for the bit.
No, I never know.
Yeah.
See him there.
Maybe, no. Maybe, I didn't see.
The children, did you have one of those pioneer presses?
Well, we had with a sort of a big round one, a different type of one, and a barrel. And and there was also in small tubs where they put in the milk, and they collect the cream and put it into the churn barrel. You would have to churn it in and test it.
Did you churn it yourself?
They put eggs in the drills, and the hair, eggs in the hair. And like,
what would happen then?
They'd be thinking like, I suppose the things are going in you, all cats are dying, you things.
And did much of that happen around that area?
Well, not a whole pile, maybe a few, like.
Did you ever find eggs or anything?
Well, we did a few times.
What did you do with them?
How do we burn them?
I don't know.
They tell you to burn them was the right thing.
That was the thing to do with them. Did you ever hear of them queer things happening?
I did. Indeed.
When did it happen? May Eve, was it?
Well, around May Eve, yeah.
November, I think, a little bit maybe was it?
We'll be shaking the holy water May Eve to keep them well.
Do you still shake the holy water in May?
Well, I don't think so.
Do you shake it?
We do.
Who do you shake it on? Cows and animals and...
Right, yes, yeah.
Do you still do it, you don't?
It's an old tradition, really.
We have a barrel here, you might describe the pigs, yes.
Oh, yes.
Behind you. There's a fine pig winking there.
That's right. And here's a few years back, anyway, every farmer kills a couple of pigs. You know, sent for the butcher, or they call him. He killed the pig, opened him and cleaned him. They took out the guts and they were cleaned and the women made puddings of them. And then after a couple of days, that pig was cut up into pieces. Put into the barrel. You put a layer of salt first in the barrel. Then you put a flitch of the meat. Then more salt. And so on until your pig covered. And then that had turned into pickle, they call it, and to preserve the meat. And that meat then was taken out, hung up over the fire on a stick.
Like here now, Wilson.
Like that had, and greased to the bowl.
That pig is up there so long, at least he was hanging somewhere so long you'd think he'd nearly talk to you at this stage. But how long would it last hanging up like that?
Oh, it would last for years, Pat.
Years, would it?
George. And to run yellow meat.
Why did they hang it over the fire?
Well, to dry it and to give it a bit of colour. To season it, to call it, Pat, like.
And if you didn't have a good fire underneath it,
Oh, it doesn't matter how quiet, you'll be surprised you better.
I was in Bunratty last Sunday at these thatched houses and they had
Right.
bacon hanging up at that. And then after the bacon was falling down and dripping down on the floor on the table.
Well, that was fresh, Pat.
Yeah.
That was fresh, that was turned down and down.
But they also said if there wasn't enough heat that the salt would melt and that.
So, but when you come to that point, to never weep.
All forever and
of course, long ago now, if it did weep, you were bound to it rain.
Rain?
Rain, yeah.
That's the first one, the griddle. Griddle fan, isn't it?
The griddle, yeah.
But I never used it to chew.
No, before our time.
Before our time.
Yeah.
And what's the next one then? The kettle. When of course.
The irons and
the hot iron.
That was the flat iron. You put that into the fire, in the fire. And this was the box iron. You're ready there. There was an iron to go into that. You're ready it and put it into it. And
heater.
That was where we had iron and lango. What else?
Sure.
The brand. That was the brand for the put alongside the fire for the put the pot.
Pots up in it. The kettle.
That one.
The shoe last.
The last.
That's a good example of one, George.
Yeah. The shoes. The women had never used the last.
That would have taken the heat, that would take the smaller shoe, that would take, that's a lady's shoe, that's a man's shoe.
Or a child shoe, yeah.
Child shoe.
Yeah.
Lovely.
The tongues, of course, but you open it up. The frying pan. Frying pan.
The weight of it is
one, yeah.
Strong women in
Metal
those
one,
days.
yes, metal frying pan, but you want to be careful not to drop it after it. And that was the brand to put it on it.
The fire itself has a bellows, so if you...
Yeah.
Did you have many bellouses in Limerick? No.
Oh,
We had, yeah. Every house.
Every house had a bellows.
Because in Bunratty, that's only one house had one. The whole debate was all the other ones. So it must have been the poor Clare farmers had no bellows.
They might have the hand bellows, you know.
Below. As Mikey Heron said, every house had one.
They had two of them, should have both have two wings.
One upstairs and one downstairs.
Well, maybe. Yes, rather collect with the wings.
Yeah.
Or they were our dusters longer.
Yeah. We have a Nash's one here now, fairly old bottle again, Nash's, no Castle West. With a round bottom. The reason they had, in case you mightn't have the answer, you mightn't be as old as I am, the reason they had the round bottom in the bottom of the bottle was when the sugar was on it, you see, so the sugar wouldn't sit in the bottom, that the bottle would always fall down and it would circulate the sugar through the lemonade. Did you ever hear that version of the round bottom? Before your time and mine, was it?
I'd say it's that bottle now, I don't know. It was a round bottle, all right, but it was a different...
You'll get it more round than that even, yeah. With a glass top.
Yeah.
What else used to use those bottles for in the farming?
We'd use them for anything.
Dosing cattle and...
Yeah, the dosing cattle, yes, indeed, exactly. Yeah. We often carried the bottles to school.
Milk in
milk, yeah. And that's all the bottles we had, something like that.
How did they put the cross in the bottle?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But I don't know.
It's very rare now, isn't it?
They tell me you put it in with sticks and with bits of cord and you give it a pull, if it was inside. I think is how they open doors, you know.
It's supposed to be the
crucifixion.
Yeah. And this is the leather gone up to put on the nails, I suppose.
Yeah.
And there the sword, the pierces.
Yeah. And the hammer that drove in the nail.
Nails, yeah. And what's this?
Another bit. It is very well done anyhow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very good detail. You have the...
Yeah.
I had inside you have the horns and the heads supposed to...
Yeah. It was a smatter on the digital.
Yeah.
Smatter than me, anyway.
Lovely.
It's lovely. I never saw one of them.
Yeah. The skillet pot was used for baking cabbage and potatoes, bacon and cabbage and rice. And what else would you put into it?
Boiled rice.
Boiled rice.
Porridge for the morning.
Porridge as well, that would you?
The small ones, yeah.
The small ones. You get a 20 gallon one, a very, very large one, a huge one indeed, to take 2 minutes left. What did you put into that?
That was for the day of the thrashing. And the day of the washing, Mondays, yeah. Now boil the water.
Boil the water.
No hot water and it kept boiled like that.
Put it on.
I'll tell you this story now about a fella this time of year when they'd be collecting the harvest. He used to always give up going to Mass. He never believed in Mass during harvest time, nearly up to Christmas. He always put his crops before Mass. But by God, this time of year anyway, we happen to have a mission in Arte. And the Holy Fathers heard this man wasn't going to Mass. Well, by God, this Sunday anyway, one of the Holy Fathers hit on for the house. He couldn't find any trace of him around the house, and someone directed him to the garden. Here he was, and he pulling mangles. He was in such a hurry, he could hardly see the priest coming. But he took him handy anyway, and he says, God, he says, you have a fine crop, God bless him. Oh, I have, Father. Here's a grand crop, no doubt. I think, says he, you aren't coming to your mission. I don't see you at the mission. I tell you the truth, Father, I have no time. He said, I'm too busy with my work. God, I don't know, he says, I think if we left him there to God, he'd see after him. But to tell you the truth, Father, God has him with the last month and he didn't pull a mangle out of him. Thank you. Well, yes, I suppose this man was very rich and he could always afford to have a priest and a doctor any time he'd be bad. So by God, this day, he brought on the priest and he brought a doctor and that put on each side of his bed. So it went on for a while, and after about a week he got very bad. And the priest was thinking he was in danger of death, and he turned over to him and he says, will you tell me, sir, did you ever make a will? You're a God, no, Father, he says, sure. Don't you know all belongs to me very well often? And sure, there's no need for me to make a will. By God, you're right, said the priest, there isn't any need for you. I think the best thing you could ever do with your money, we're doing up the church, leave it to the church. And by God, we'll always pray for you. So he turned over to the doctor and he says to the doctor, what do you think of that, doctor? You're a God, said the doctor, I wouldn't agree with him at all. I think, see, the best thing you could do with your money is leave it to us. We're going to make a doctor of our son and we're short of money. And I think the best thing you could do is leave us the money and we'll make a doctor of him and he'll be able to cure a lot of people. So by God, the old man laid back in the bed, he got a bursting fit of laughing. The priest turns over to him, what are you laughing at, man, he says. Well, no wonder I'd laugh, Father, he says. Haven't I dying like our Lord? How is that, says the priest. For God's sake, Father, I'm dying between two thieves. Thank you.
Dr. Mannequin Shoy, whom most of you know at this particular stage, and the regulars here know him anyhow, and everybody would have heard of him on his article in the Limerick Leader for many, many years. As I said earlier in the evening, always very helpful, and we're indeed very honoured and proud to have him, and he will speak for about 5 minutes or so on the harvest time of long ago. Thank you.
Well, the harvest time, of course, was always a very important time, and especially before the coming of the modern harvesting machinery. It was a critical time, and the crops had to be saved, and if weather was bad, all hands were on deck, young and old, men, women and children had to go out and help to save the harvest. Now, I remember 1946, on the 12th of August 1946, there was a terrible, disastrous flood, and it swept away an awful lot of hay in different parts of the country. But from that flood, I think until about April 1947, the sun was hardly seen. It was a fearful winter, a terrible harvest, so much so that the army was sent out, and people from towns and cities were recruited and went out into the country to help to save the harvest. I think that was about the last time out here. So such an effort made to save the harvest. Now, there are a lot of traditions in different parts of the country about saving the harvest. And one very common one was where a cornfield would be cut, and it was a custom to leave one patch of the corn standing until the very end. Nobody just mowed away and all finished together. One patch would be left standing, about enough to make a sheaf, and all gathered round that. And there was a certain amount of ceremony about this particular last patch of corn. And sometimes when people cut with hooks, we've heard tonight of hooks being used to cut the corn, but the mowers with the hooks sometimes stood back a short distance from that patch of corn, and they threw the hooks at it, and with great skill they might cut a certain amount of it, but the person who would cut the very last stalks always received a great cheer. It was a great feat. Now, the sheaf that was made of that last patch of straw was sometimes called Uncailach, the hag. I think we had a sheaf going around here earlier this evening, and it was called Uncailach because of the belief that sometimes women who practiced pishogues turned themselves into a hare, and it was, the small animals and frogs and all sorts of creatures, they kept moving away from the moors and ended up in that last patch, and it was believed the hare that would be anything and would make a bolt for freedom at the end would really be one of those pishogue workers, a hag, and so it was called Uncailach, the hag, that last sheaf of straw. And at times it was taken in procession to the house of the owner of the land and presented maybe to the owner himself if he wasn't out as he should be, helping to save the harvest, or to his wife. Now, another thing that was done in different parts of the country, I think even northeast Limerick is mentioned in this connection, was that there were some kind of a decoration, like a brooch to wear, was made of plaited straw. It was called a harvest knot. And some of them were very elaborate, and the ears of corn were included in the thing. And those are mostly worn by girls on their hair. And the men wore plainer kind of a harvest knot. But that was a common practice in parts of the country. Now, of course, the harvest home was another very important thing. When the harvest was safely gathered and in the barn or in the haggart, the owner of the crops, he threw a night for the people, for the workers and neighbours who helped to core with him and the mehl, and they gathered into his house, and there would be feasting and drinking and so on, and that was the harvest home. And I think there is an Irish Cayley dance called Portanoir, the harvest time jig, and I'm quite sure that received its name from the fact that it was danced maybe at these harvest homes. Now, the first Sunday after the 15th of August in some parts of the country was called Dascawn Sunday. Dascawn means gleaning, and the farmer and his family and the workers would go out into the cornfield, which had already been cut, and they would glean, they would gather the stray stalks of corn. Some of you may remember a picture that's often seen in houses by Millet, the gleaners. Here there is a companion picture by the same painter, De Angelis. And apart from the cutting of the corn and the saving of it, of course, the making of the reek was a big day too at harvest time. And I can remember at home long ago how we looked forward to the day the reek was made, and a kind of a foundation would be laid down for it, maybe of rushes, and in a very big circle, and then they would start to draw in the hay. Now, it was mostly on floats that the wines were brought in at that time, and I can remember there was a man in Brewery House named Browning. His predecessor there, Gubbins, won the Epsom Derby twice with two famous horses, Galtymore and Patrick, but he had a stud farm in Knockfierna, and I can remember his workmen carting hay, loads of hay from Knockfierna to Brewery, and there'd be piled a big load of hay on a cart, a big strong horse drawing it, and it called for a great lot of skill. The hay was cuddled up at the corners of the load. You'd never see the like now, of course, but I can remember that of their drawing the hay back into Brewery. But I remember it, of course, bringing in the wines of hay on the floats and into the hay haggard. And I think, you know, that's very nice. Hymn, Christ and Shield, it captures a lot of the atmosphere of the hay haggard. You have a Christ and Shield, like Christ and Four, in Ihlan Day, Godukter Shing. That is, to Christ the seed, to Christ the harvest. In God's haggard may we be garnered. So I think I could finish appropriately with that account of the thing, but one could keep talking for a long time about the harvest, and the digging out of the potatoes, of course, was another great occasion of the harvest period. So anyway, I think we have commemorated and celebrated the harvest very appropriately with song and music here tonight, and has been a great night. Thanks to Pat O'Donovan and to all who contributed in various ways to the night.
I wrote a song after the 1956 All-Ireland Flag, which was held in Ennis. And incidentally, since I wrote it, there were about 22 or 3 or 4 names of musicians and singers. But when Paddy Murphy, a great concertina player from Kilmaley, died, I was 17 names. There was wife that heard the song. There were 4 or 5 was left. Kieran McMahon and myself and Chris Roney and Paddy Caddy and someone else. Anyway, here's the song. Will you sit back a while till I sing you a song? 'Tis not very short or it's not very long. It's about the flag held down in Ennis, you see. So to me will you pay your attention? I'm not a great singer, but I know there are words. I cannot help trying to sing you a verse or to let you all know how the flag held got on. And for you know who couldn't attend these. They came from the north and they came from the east. From the west and the south was a thriller to see, with fiddles and bagpipes and piccolos too, and drumsticks to keep them in order. They came down from Dublin so hearty and gay. They brought Leo Rossum to show them the way. Himself and Sean Seary, they played all the way with the flute player Vincent Dobradry. Skidry idle dum didry dum didry diddy. They came down from Cavan so far, far away. I'm sure they were travelling for most of the day, with singers and players, the best they can say, to compete at the flag down in Ennis. Their players were good and their singers were keen, but Margaret O'Reilly was the best of the team, and big Dr. Galligan, he wore the bonnet just as swanked at the flag down in Ennis. From the kingdom of Kerry they all made their way here, and brave Dennis Murphy, he started to play the old flog on reel and the black up a day. Sure you'd feel 10 times younger right after. From Limerick Fair City they came by the score, and Johnny McMahon, he played in Encore, and the Bold Andy Kane, sure he played as much more. And the finish he played Colonel Fraser. Skidry idle down didry down didry diddy. From Wicklow and Carlow they all fell in line, and up from Port Arlington came Johnny Ryan. He resined his bow and he watched every line, for he won the first prize on the violin. From Galway they came every man and his wife, with Eddie Maloney who played on the fife, and young Kieran Collins would make the dead rise when he played us the lark in the morning. There was music and song from all over Clare, the Max of Closheen and sure all the Mulcaires, the Mike Preston Trio and Martin Mulhare, not forgetting the Mr. Joe Leary. Mrs. Crotty, she came all the way from Kilrush. She took a high note for the bird on the bush. She played all the day and she never did blush. 'Twas good girl yourself, Mrs. Crotty. Skiddery idle dum diddy dum diddy diddy. Now Peter all locked and from Connolly came. He brought Paddy Murphy, so it was all in the game. They played a duet and they made a big name for the one at the flat down in Ennis. And down from Bell Harbour, Christoni came. He played on a matchbox, I thought was that same. Till someone said, Robbie, what's that you were saying? Isn't that his no small concertina? They came down from Quilty to sing and to play. Hey, wet big Martin County from Milton Malbay. And the bowl Willie Clancy, he gave a display. Sure we know he's the king of the pipers. And someone said, then who's that man over there? Isn't that Jimmy Ward from the north side of Clare? He plays on the banjo with music to spare, for he plays with the great Kilfenora. Our own Paddy Kenny, he took all the fair. He plays with the streets and right up to the square. Said Daniel O'Connell, my life when you're there. And I think you're the best of them all, sure. And all from America, more of them flew. And Paddy O'Brien, he was one of the few. He played on the accordion, you'd swear there were two. He got so many notes in together. Now Kieran McMahon was busy with the hard record and the march of the good and the bad. But for him more music was gone to the bad. So 'tis welcome Kieran McMahon. 'Tis all over now, but 'twas something to see. So thanks to Sean Reid and the great committee. So I wish you good health now and good luck from me on till we all meet in Dungarvan. I've never another one, I think, huh? Yeah. Did you hear about the two little ducks that were crossing a busy street in Belfast one day? The first little duck says, quack, quack, quack. The second little duck says, I can't go any quacker.
We were talking there about Henny Green. As I said, there's a lot of stories told about her. She seems to be an unusual type of woman, one that they talked about. Was she a big woman or a small woman?
She was a woman about 5'3" or 4". She wasn't a big woman at all. She was stout, low-sized.
And how was she dressed?
She used to dress with the shawl.
Up to the time she died, was it?
Up to the time. It was myself and Denny Grady, the optimist, took her out from here. The passage was bad, Tim. Denny Grady's did know the optimist.
How did you take her out?
I tell you how we took her out. We took her out in a donkey's car and a sheet of gamblers over it and the coffin on top.
Yeah. And she was last one of that type in around, obviously.
She was the last as long as I remember anyway. There was Jim Sullivan and Johnny Dinian before her.
Lovely, Jack. No. That concludes the night. We have one presentation to make before we go. If you come over here with me now. Did you have pigs up here long ago?
Pigs?
Yeah.
No, not here, no.
Not a pig?
No, not a pig.
You can take that pig home with you and I'll call in for a piece of his. So here, one for the road, Jack. We're going to wrap him up there in the nose.
I'll wrap him up. Oh, I'll take him. Thanks, Pat.
No, wrap away in the nose. You can wash your wing in. The fresh pig's head. They usually conclude with the rosary.
Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. I believe in God, the Father Almighty, the Creator of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, His only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Ghost, born of Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, dead, and was buried. He descended into hell. Third day He rose again from the dead. He ascended into heaven, sits at the right hand of God, the Father Almighty, from thence to come to judge the living and the dead. Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Glory be to the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. O my Jesus, forgive us our sins, save us from the fires of hell, lead all souls to heaven, especially those in need of your mercy. Hail, Holy Queen, Mother of Mercy, hail our life, our sweetness, and our hope. We cry, poor banished children of Eve, to reason up our sighs, mourning and weeping, valley of tears. Turn them, most gracious Advocate, thine eyes of mercy towards us, and after this our exile shown to us the blessed fruit of thy womb, Jesus. O clement of loving, O sweet Virgin Mary, pray for us, Mother of God. Let us pray, pour forth, we beseech thee, O Lord, that by grace in our hearts, through the incarnation of Christ, thy Son was made known by the mystery of the age. May by his passion cross be brought to the door of his resurrection, Saint Christ our Lord. Amen. May the divine assistance remain always with us, and may the souls of the faithful departed, save God, rest in peace. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Give me a home in Knockfierna, at the side of the wind-swept hill, there again to smell the sweet heather, and to hear the old cullroo's call, with a rose tapping light at the window, and God's blessed light over all. It's there my fond thoughts will linger, no matter wherever I roam. I ask not for fame or for fortune, but give me